Begin this morning with police arresting a man in connection with the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. 26-year-old Luigi Mangione was taken into custody yesterday morning, ending a 5-day manhunt. He was found at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania, after an employee called police about a suspicious person who matched the suspect's description. Police say Mangione had a gun and a silencer similar to one used in last week's shooting, as well as a fake driver's license. Police believe that ID was used to book a room at a hostel in New York City. Two law enforcement officials tell NBC News police found a 3-page handwritten document from Mangione that refers to the healthcare industry and, quote, speaks to both his motivation and mindset. Mangione is currently being held in a state prison in Huntington, Pennsylvania, facing gun and forgery charges. He was denied bail during a preliminary arraignment yesterday. His preliminary hearing is scheduled for December 23rd. Online court documents show New York has also filed murder charges against Mangione. It's not known when he will be extradited to the state. The 26-year-old suspect is from a prominent family in Maryland. He attended a top private high school in Baltimore, where he became class valedictorian. In 2020, Mangione graduated from the University of Pennsylvania, earning both a bachelor's and a master's degree in engineering.
Let's bring in NBC News national law enforcement and intelligence correspondent Tom Winter. Tom, good morning. You and your colleague Jonathan Dienst broke this news yesterday that came like a thunderbolt on all our phones, that there was somebody in Altoona, Pennsylvania. We couldn't quite figure out why Altoona, Pennsylvania. So walk us through what you learned yesterday and now what we know about a man who's been charged now with murder.
Right. So basically, this happens only because an employee at McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania, sees him and says, I recognize him from the news. Now, remember, what's interesting is at the hostel, the people that he roomed with said he would never take off his mask, but he would just to put in a bite of food. Obviously, you can't eat through the mask. And so here he is eating at a McDonald's. This individual spots him and then calls police. They show up, and the details from the court documents filed in Pennsylvania, and that only pertains to the ghost gun. So he was going to get charged in Pennsylvania regardless because he has the ghost gun, and that's in violation of state firearms laws. But they ask him, have you been to New York recently? And he starts shaking. And that's when the police officers, including the one who arrested him, he's been on the job now only 6 months. That's the moment when they knew that they had him. Prior to that, they did run that identification, and it came back negative. So they just call that in over dispatch. They check it with the national database, and they say, we don't have a driver's license under it. But that driver's license, the fact that he presented it at the hostel and then had it on his person, another huge clue. And I think that's the reason why the NYPD and us as reporters, as we started to learn more about the types of things that were found on him, it wasn't just that I got a guy that kind of looks like the person we've been seeing in all these images over the last couple of weeks, and that there's a gun. As soon as we found out that he had the ID, at that point, it appeared this was going to be.
And it all does go back to that one image from the hostel where he took his mask down when he checked in and presented that fake New Jersey ID.
It's only a couple of seconds.
Yeah, it's a quick image.
Just a few seconds that he takes it down.
And from that being pushed out across the national media, an employee at McDonald's says, wait, that face looks familiar. I better call 911, and they catch the guy. So do we get it all yet to motive? They found I don't know if it's fair to call it a manifesto, but some complaints he had about the healthcare system. We know he'd recently had back surgery, been estranged from his family, who hadn't been in touch with him for a while. What more do we know about motive this morning?
3+ pages of kind of handwritten notes. It's kind of a little bit all over the place. I think when all the details of it come out, it's going to point to the fact that, yes, he definitely had an animus towards the healthcare industry over some specific things, and in particular, perhaps this company, United Healthcare, or at least referenced it. And there are some specific things that he apparently says to law enforcement in there as far as what they will find and what they won't find. I think it could potentially be, if there are other articles or other written items that he has, and there's some indications he might help law enforcement understand how he put this all together. The work that he did as far as his time in New York City, trying to determine where Brian Thompson, the CEO who was killed, who had his funeral yesterday, by the way, and leaves behind a wife and 2 kids, how he knew he was going to be where he was and the type of work that he did. I think that there might be some more details that'll come out about that in the coming days. But, you know, putting it all together, the evidence against him is very damning, and that's why he's been charged with murder here in New York City, and so he's no longer a strong person of interest. He's the guy they're charged.
So, Tom, police sources for a while were almost impressed by how he had pulled this off here in New York. It was clearly meticulously planned. He knew where Thompson was going to be. He had a getaway route with the bike. He paid cash at the hostel. He went through the park. He got out of town right away. But it seems like he got tripped up by some pretty basic mistakes here, right? The same ID and also still having the weapon on him.
Yeah, so, you know, you could look at that a couple of different ways. Maybe he didn't want to ditch the weapon because he was afraid that somebody was going to find it. It is a ghost gun, meaning that it was manufactured effectively at home or by a 3D printer. Whether or not he manufactured it, whether or not somebody else manufactured it, that's going to be a question. Somebody could face charges for that, of course. But having that ID on him certainly helped them out. But he had a manifesto, so at some point he wanted to be caught. He wanted people to know why he was doing this. But the fact that he was able to evade detection for so long in New York City, and the fact that it's really just this one mistake that we're looking at on screen right now, this 2 to 3 seconds when he pulls that mask down, that's the reason why we're able to sit here today and say that there's been an arrest, no doubt about it. I mean, Sunday night, when I talked to people from the NYPD, we were at the stage where they said, if anybody has any information, no matter how small, whatever little detail, anything, I mean, you get to that point of the investigation, you're struggling to try to figure out where this person might be, and they were just trying to backtrack him the whole way.
Boy, how fascinating that we talk about cameras all over the place.
All over the place.
And it ends up actually being eyes on him in Altoona, Pennsylvania, at a McDonald's that actually brings this manhunt to an end.